It takes less than a minute. A woman steps into a hotel elevator, alone. The doors close. On every camera after that, she simply doesn't exist. Tonight, we're looking at people who don't just disappear from the world, but from the one thing that's supposed to see everything: CCTV. Silent cameras that give us a beginning but no ending. Frames that stop just before the answer. This is Dark File Archive, and in this episode, we're opening 5 cases where someone walked into view and never came back out. These are real-world scenarios, pieced together from reports, testimony, and the limits of what the cameras can show. We're not here to sensationalize or to point fingers at real individuals. We're here to ask, how can a person vanish in under 60 seconds while the whole world is supposedly watching? Our first case begins in a city hotel, late at night. A woman checks in alone, pulling a small suitcase. The lobby cameras show nothing unusual: a quiet front desk, a tired guest, a room key handed over. She walks to the elevator, wheels her suitcase inside, and taps her floor number. When the elevator doors close, something changes. On the footage, you see her suddenly move toward the control panel, pressing multiple buttons. She leans forward, as if listening. Then she steps to the side, flattening herself against the wall, like she's hiding from someone just outside the doors. But when the doors open, the hallway is empty. She peeks out, then quickly ducks back in. She presses more buttons. At one point, she steps out into the hallway, makes a strange half-turn, and moves her hands as if talking to someone who isn't there. The hallway camera shows only her. No one else steps into frame. This goes on for several long, tense minutes. She steps in and out of the elevator, looks down the corridor, presses herself into the corner as if someone is about to walk in after her. The doors open and close, and every time the hallway is empty. Then finally, she steps out and turns left. That's the last time she's clearly seen alive on any public camera. According to staff, she never used her room that night. Hours later, when she doesn't answer calls, the hotel eventually launches an internal search. Only much later is she discovered in a restricted area of the building she should never have been able to reach alone. How she got there, and what happened in those missing minutes after the elevator, has never been fully explained. The confirmed facts are simple: a solo guest, unusual behavior in the elevator, and a final walk down an empty hallway. From there, records fragment. Some people speculate that she was running from someone who stayed just out of frame, slipping into blind spots between cameras. Others suggest a mental health crisis, that what she thought she was seeing wasn't physically there at all. Then there's the uncomfortable possibility that cameras failed us at the worst possible time. Angles that don't show stairwells, doors left off the grid, and areas no one thought to monitor. When you depend on CCTV to be the final witness, those gaps become huge. But this isn't the only time someone has walked into frame and never walked out. Our next case starts in an underground parking garage, near the end of a long workday. An office worker finishes a late shift and heads for the elevators that lead down to the garage. Lobby cameras track him as he presses the call button, steps in, and rides down. There's nothing unusual about him at first. Tired posture, work bag over his shoulder, keys in hand. The elevator doors open into the garage. Another camera picks him up as he steps out into the concrete space, lit by fluorescent lights. You can hear the faint hum on the audio track. He walks in a straight line toward his car. One camera sees him pass row after row of vehicles. Another catches him from the side as he reaches his sedan, opens the trunk, and puts his bag inside. He closes the trunk, walks to the driver's door, and reaches for the handle. Then nothing. The next piece of footage anyone can find is from hours later when security does a routine sweep. The car is still in the same space. The trunk is closed. The interior is empty. The worker's phone and personal items are gone, presumably with him. There is no footage of the car ever leaving the garage. No camera records him walking back toward the elevator or slipping into another vehicle. A search of the stairwells and exits reveals no confirmed sightings. No alarms were triggered. There's no record of any emergency doors opening around the time he vanished. The facts form a short, clean line. Elevator down, walk to car, open trunk, reach for door handle, and then the trail stops. The theories try to fill that gap. Some think he may have met someone just out of frame, another person who pulls up beside him, a door opening from a blind corner, a quick conversation that leads him away from the car. If that happened, it happened in a slice of space the cameras don't see. Others suggest a technical failure. A dead camera, a misconfigured recorder, footage overwritten or lost before anyone realized its importance. In CCTV systems, one missing file can erase the only proof that a person walked out of frame. What's disturbing is how fast it happens. From the moment he enters the garage to the moment he's last seen, less than a minute passes. He reaches for the door handle, the system moves on to the next camera, and his story becomes a blank. But parking garages aren't the only places where people vanish in the gaps between lenses. Our third case unfolds in a busy shopping mall. For most of the day, this shopper is completely ordinary. Cameras catch her browsing clothing racks, walking past food stalls, sitting briefly in the food court. She pays in cash, carries a few small bags, and doesn't draw attention. There is no sign she's being followed or watched. Late in the afternoon, she moves toward an emergency exit corridor near the back of the mall. This hallway isn't meant for customers, but it's not exactly hidden. One camera records her heading down a long corridor, moving toward an area where two cameras overlap. On the footage, you see her walk past a large pillar. For a moment, the pillar blocks most of her body. The expectation is simple. A second later, she should emerge on the other side, continue down the hallway, and then appear on the next camera pointing at the exit door. She never does. On the second camera, there is only an empty corridor. The door never opens. No one else appears in that window of time. There are no signs of a struggle, no dropped bags, nothing disturbed. She walks behind a pillar on one screen and fails to exist on the next. The corridor is searched. Maintenance areas, storage rooms, and side doors are all checked. Officially, no one can confirm exactly where she went after stepping behind that obstruction. The mall's layout has small rooms, service passages, and side stairs, but none of them explain why she never shows up on the other camera, even for a second. Theories point again to blind spots and timing. It's possible she slipped through an unmonitored side door, or into a service area at the precise moment the cameras switched angles or dropped frames. Others suggest intentional sabotage, a camera aimed slightly away from where it should be or footage corrupted after the fact. The strange part is that she chose a corridor most shoppers never use, at a time when the mall was still relatively busy. If she planned to vanish, it was a carefully chosen route. If she didn't, then she found one of the few places where a person can disappear in the space of a single pillar. Hotels, too, seem to have these hidden paths. Our fourth case goes back to a hotel hallway, late at night. A male guest is seen leaving his room on the security camera. He appears confused, trying different door handles along the corridor, as if he's lost or disoriented. He's still in casual clothes, not dressed to go out for the night, and his room key is in his hand. The hallway camera records him walking unsteadily, occasionally stopping, looking at the room numbers, and then moving on. Staff would later say there were no noise complaints, no known issues with his room that night. Finally, he turns a corner toward the stairwell. In most hotels, the stairwells have their own cameras. They're simple, stable shots, a fixed view of doors, steps, and sometimes the landing. In this case, that camera never records him. He doesn't emerge in the stairwell. He doesn't show up on the next floor. There's no footage of him entering the elevator again, no sign of him at any exit. By morning, his room is untouched. His luggage, identification, and personal items are still inside. The simplest explanation is that he did reach the stairwell, but the camera failed. Either it wasn't working at that moment, or the angle missed the landing. He may have slipped into a service level or onto the roof, areas that sometimes sit just outside camera view. Speculation goes further. Some wonder if someone else met him at that corner, leading him into a staff-only corridor or a side door. Others think his behavior suggests confusion or a medical episode, and that he might have wandered into a part of the building no one thought to check until much later. What's consistent is this. The official record shows him walking down a hallway, turning a corner, and then nothing. For investigators, that corner becomes the edge of the map. Our final case doesn't happen in a crowded building, but in the quiet of a residential street. At about 2 in the morning, a motion-activated security camera on a house records an unfamiliar car pulling into the driveway. The headlights sweep across the front of the house, then shut off. Through the windshield, you can see the silhouette of a driver sitting still. There's no sound of doors opening. No one steps out on the passenger side. For a long moment, the car just sits there, engine idling quietly or maybe already turned off. The street is empty. The houses around are dark. Minutes pass. The camera records the car, the driveway, the front door of the house. No one walks up to the porch. No one leaves the car and disappears off-screen. There is no second camera to pick up what happens on the other side of the vehicle. At some point, the recording cuts to the next motion event. A neighbor's car driving past later that night or the first signs of morning. The unfamiliar car is still there. When daylight comes and the residents notice the vehicle hasn't moved, they call it in. Inside, they find the driver's wallet, phone, and personal belongings. But there's no driver, no footprints on the lawn, no obvious signs of a struggle, just a car that arrived on camera and a person who never got out, at least not where the camera could see. Possible explanations include the driver leaving the car during a recording gap, stepping into a blind zone beside the house, or walking away under cover of darkness before the motion sensor triggered again. It's also possible that the camera's sensitivity missed subtle movement in low light. But the image stays with you. A car pulling in, headlights going dark, and a human silhouette that might be sitting there for the last time anyone ever sees them. Across all 5 of these cases, one theme keeps repeating: cameras that show us just enough to disturb us but not enough to answer our questions. An elevator that records fear but not the pursuer. A parking garage where someone walks to their car but never drives away. A mall corridor where a single pillar hides the moment everything changes. A hotel corner that becomes a boundary between known and unknown. A driveway where a stranger arrives and then leaves no trace the camera can prove. CCTV is supposed to make the world feel safer. We install it in lobbies, elevators, garages, corridors, and driveways because we believe it will tell the full story if something goes wrong. But these cases remind us that every camera has edges. Every lens has blind spots. And sometimes, the most important moments happen just outside the frame. So what do you think is really happening in stories like these? Are these failures of technology, bad angles, dead cameras, missing files? Or are they examples of something darker, people who knew how to move between the gaps? And if you had access to every second of footage, every missing frame, would the answers be ordinary, or would they raise even more questions? If you want more real-world mysteries like this, handled carefully and without sensationalism, consider subscribing to Dark File Archive. Tell us in the comments, which of these cases unsettled you the most, and what kind of mystery do you want us to open next?